Good morning, Reverend Robert Ugen Doshin Yamada here, and welcome to the Animal Liberation Temple, Dobutsu Kyoji, where we are at the service of the spiritual and physical liberation of our dear animal friends. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the ancestral and seized lands of the Yokuts, Karkan, Confederate villages of the Lisha, Ohlone, Miwok, and Miwok-Ma people. We recognize them, the legacy of violence, settlement, and displacement of these people who suffered and survived. Good morning to Jackie, and good morning April, who commented on YouTube but is also here with us live inside the temple. So happy to have her here. I'm sure we have more people who tuned in live, but I can only see comments. But thank you all for joining us here on today's services. We'll start with the updates. Temple updates are pretty much the same. Still fundraising for our new roof, fundraising to keep our truck, fundraising to continue having an easy path for all of our residents here as far as food and water goes. Oh yeah, that's an update. Our big water container that we use to carry water up the hill, that broke yesterday. So that's going to have to be replaced. They're not cheap. A used one is around $100. So we'll need to replace that this week so we can continue bringing water up the hill. That's really important. Weather has been pretty good. We've had a few overcast days, which caused us to have to use a generator, which is always a fuel cost. But we only had to do that for a couple days, so that wasn't too bad. And I believe our last 5 gallons of gas was donated by Joe, who was supposed to just let me know how much gas costs and never got back to me. And I kept pestering him about that, but maybe it was a donation. We'll see. I'll pester him again to make sure that's covered. But let us get into our resident updates. As always, I think it's really important that we recognize each individual resident here at the Animal Liberation Temple. So I want to start with our duck friends, Breve, Greve, and Renee, who are our Peking ducks rescued from factory farms here in California. They're all doing really well. Renee's definitely getting up there in age, moves around a bit slower as she's was born with a disability in her foot as well as her brain. So she's, had a difficult life, but enjoys the sunshine and enjoys her friends and is doing well. We have our dog friends, Lucy, who of course is rescued from the dog fighting industry, Bernard, who was adopted here in Contra Costa, and Victor, who is rescued from laboratories for animal testing. Very much like our rat friend, Hasu, who is also rescued from a laboratory and is also getting up there in age. Hasu's getting much older, moving around a lot slower, but still hanging out. Our goat friends down the hill, Rob, Matt, and Phil. Rob and Matt were both rescued as little baby goats from a goat farm where they use them for their meat, unfortunately. And Phil was adopted by a small farm who also used them for meat, but actually decided to stop raising goats for meat and kept Phil on as a kind of a pet, I guess you would call that at that time. But Phil was eating very poorly because these folks who raised these animals for meat really didn't have any idea of how to feed them correctly. And so when Phil got older, he became very overweight and because of his poor diet, he had a very poor disposition to other goats and other humans, and was very angry all the time. And probably wasn't treated the best in his life. But upon coming to the temple, he decided to give everybody another chance, and became a lot more gentle, and moved on to become like a wonderful goat friend to all the herd down the hill. Our tortoise friend Miyachi is doing really well, also rescued from the pet trade. Priya and Harriet, our turkey friends, rescued from factory farms in Utah, doing really well. Our Cornishes, all of which who have been rescued from factory farms and slaughterhouses in California, are all doing really well. Jax, Jimmy, Edward, Poppy, Aster, Ivy, Azalea, Peony, Cynthia, Lotus, Magnolia, Sage, Marigold, Camilla, Hydrangea, Holly, and Zinnia, all doing really well. And then our hen friends who were rescued from slaughterhouses, Glennis, Gwen, Alice, Rebel, and Mariah, all doing really well. Our rooster friends, Sabrina, May, Hard One, Elton, George, Brad, and Kudu, all doing really well. Our guinea fowl friend Wendy, rescued from a slaughterhouse, also doing really well. Our mourning dove friend Sequoia, who was a companion to a woman who had passed away several years ago, but still had Sequoia as her companion friend, kind of outlived her, and so Sequoia came to the temple to live with us, and is doing really well. All of our pigeon friends who are mostly rescued from Palomacy, they were either rescued from slaughterhouses or pet trade, or where they're often used for magic shows or dove releases, as sport, for like acrobatic techniques, things like that. But just there's heavily used, pigeons unfortunately are heavily used, and not given the autonomy that they need, as well as just not being able to be released anymore into the wild because of their inability to find food and avoid predators. So our pigeon friends all live in one of the largest pigeon aviaries that we have here in California, and that is FP, Champagne, Tulin, Sasha, Yo-Yo, Petey, Ricky, Spreckles, Spencer, Shambles, Beluga, Beth, Pee-wee, Cascade, Augustus, Rufus, Harper, Elliot, Snickers, Boba, Kismet, Farah, Angus, Pandora, Jones, Sin, Lago, Fred, Tremonto, Halo, Vin, Capone, Percy, Pacino, Lacey, Sasha, the Second, Dora, and Endora. All of them doing really well. And then, of course, our 3 foster ducks who are also doing wonderful. Reading through the comments, making sure I'm not missing anybody. So those are our updates for all of our residents here. Let us get started with our services for recitation of the sutras and prayers that are all dedicated to our dear animal friends. These prayers are of great auspicious benefit to all of that hear them, and we ask that you have your companion animals nearby where they can hear them, or in a place where our wild animal friends can hear them, especially remembering our dear insect friends that might be around, who can greatly benefit from this practice. We'll start with the recitation of the Great Heart of Wisdom Sutra, found on page 4 of the Animal Liberation Temple Prayer Book. Maka hanya haramita shingyo kanji zai mo zatsu gyojin hanya この孤独をもってあまねく一切に及ぼし我ら年者富な共に仏道 Animal Liberation の上善ことを地方三子佛子孫菩薩佛子孫菩薩もこさもこほじゃはろみI will now recite the refuge prayer in Tibetan and then in English, found on page 8 of the Animal Liberation Temple Prayer Book. Sangye chodan suki chonam la janju padu tekni gyapsu chi daki jinso kyepe sonam ge drola pendra sangye ju parsho. The Buddha, Dharma, and excellent assembly of the Sangha. Until I attain enlightenment in these I take refuge. By my practice of the 6 perfections may all sentient beings attain the state of Buddhahood. We now recite the 4 great Bodhisattva vows, Shigi Seigan, page 9. Shujo Muhen Seigando Bono Mujin Segandan Omon Muryo Segangak Botoro Mujo Seganjo. However numerous sentient beings, I vow to enlighten them all. However inexhaustible my delusions, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the dharmas, I vow to master them all. However endlessly enlightened way, I vow to follow it fully. And we now recite the 6 vows to our dear animal friends, page 10. However numerous my dear animal friends, I vow to liberate them all. However diverse the methods of animal liberation, I vow to support them all. However unheard their voices, I vow to speak out for them all. However painful and inexhaustible the methods of suffering, I vow to bear witness to them all. However infinite the cages and tanks, I vow to empty them all. However difficult animal liberation, I vow to achieve it completely. We now recite the Vajrasattva Purification Mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Anupalaya Vajrasattva Te Nopatistite Dome Bhava Sito Shome Bhava Supo Shome Bhava Anorato Me Bhava Sarva Sita Me Pariyatra Sarva Karma Sita Me Situm Shri Yam Guru Hom Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajrama Me Mucha Vajri Bhava Maha Samamya Safaha. It looks like our streaming on our YouTube might not be working great. That's okay. Good morning, Tani, and good morning, Martin. Thank you for tuning in live. I see the comments here on Facebook. And yeah, it looks like I lost my no, my I'm still on YouTube. I'm sorry, Facebook. YouTube is fine. I think I lost my Facebook Live. It definitely did. It's definitely gone. Give me one moment, folks. I am going to just try to get my service back on Facebook. Okay, we're back live on Facebook. Sorry, folks, for losing that. I'm not sure what happened and why that did that. Oh, give me a couple seconds here to let people get back onto Facebook. Thank you, everyone, for checking on YouTube to make sure we're still good there. It looks like we are. Hopefully, my Facebook folks return. This week I want to talk about tragedy and how we deal with that. And I think I'm going to illustrate it with two stories, but I want people to keep in mind what tragedy might look like for you. It might be something personal in your life. It might be something that is just like unwanted in your life. It might be something that is broader. Maybe it's what's happening to our dear animal friends. Maybe it's various wars happening across the world. Maybe it's injustice happening, in your state or in a neighboring area in your community. It could look like a lot of different things. But I want you to think about what is that tragedy that is affecting you in this moment, and maybe tragedy is too big of a word. Maybe it's just something unwanted, or maybe it's a obstacle or a piece of negative karma that you're finding difficult to get past. And how do we overcome? And I have a piece of advice because I think that there's a lot of ways that we can overcome tragedy. But I've been blessed to notice two different ways I had saw this being overcome. The first one I want to talk about is my dear wild bird friends here at the temple. This year we've seen a lot of swifts, and they're these little birds with two little tail feathers that come out the back. And are really beautiful little birds, and they're really tiny, and they have taken to nesting around the temple. And about a month ago, we had a really bad storm. And the storm had knocked down four little babies out of the nest. And these babies, during that windstorm, did pass away. And I felt how tragic this was for their parents, who had been caring for them and had birthed them, and these were their babies. And I couldn't imagine how one overcomes such a horrible thing. How does one overcome, the loss of your children, the loss of these poor little innocent babies? who passed away from nothing but just a really bad windstorm. We did services for them here at the temple, and they were actually buried with one of my pigeon friends who had passed away as well. And they were ordained as monks and nuns within the Animal Liberation Temple, and that was really important. And maybe that helped me feel a little bit better about the situation. But how do the parents overcome that? How do they get past that? And this morning I was watching these same Swifts. Swifts tend to take care of their children. The mother and father both come back, and there is the same nest is still up there, and there's 3 more babies that were born not too long ago. And the same Swifts that had lost their children before are now caring for 3 new babies. And I see them, they go off and find food and come back and bring their babies food. And they do this literally hundreds of times a day. I have no idea how they have this energy or how they have this drive to do this. And it makes me think about how did they overcome this personal tragedy in their life. And I look at this idea of service. They've overcome their tragedy by being a service to their next little babies. And they work so hard, continuously flying about and gathering food and bringing it back to their babies, and then repeating this. Early in the morning I see them flying back and forth, as early as 6 o'clock in the morning. And then as late as like 8, 9 o'clock at night, I still see them flying back and forth. The sun is barely up and there's barely an inch of light, and they're still of service. They're still flying around and taking care. And I think service is maybe what healed these little birds' hearts. Continuing to be of service, and maybe it doesn't fix the tragedy, right? It doesn't replace their babies. It doesn't maybe even completely heal their hearts. But it is something that is they can do that is beautiful. It's something they can do that is worthwhile. Being a service doesn't necessarily repair the tragedy, but it does give your heart something to do. It does start to complete your heart again, because it can feel so empty. It can, when we experience tragedy, it can feel earth-shattering and brokenhearted, and even if that is never repaired, we can start to heal. We can start to give our heart something else to do through service. And so service is really important, and so I want folks to think about how maybe the hardships, the obstacles, the tragedy that you might experience in your life, how can service start to repair that? And I want to give another example, because I feel like service is something that can be very difficult to do at times, and maybe we can't be like the Swifts who jump right back into service like immediately. That's something that's difficult to do. And so there's another example I'd like to give, and that is of my dear friend, and I've told this story before, but how this affected me greatly was my dear friend Magnus the horse. And as you know, my dear friend Magnus the rooster, who is named after that horse friend of mine, had passed away just last week. And so I'm reminded of this. Magnus the horse is a horse resident here at One Living Sanctuary, where is the property that I live on and operate the Animal Liberation Temple from. And Magnus was a very aggressive horse, and I would, not just me, but anybody who walked by Magnus would show his teeth and get upset and kick his rear legs, and sometimes he'd even chase human beings away, and he'd chase the other horses away, and kind of, a rude horse, kind of constantly upset and angry. And I had learned how he got that way. Is he unfortunately was by the train track with his mate, and he witnessed his mate get run over by a train. Just severe tragedy. Horses have a very close bond with their mates, and to witness that must have been absolutely horrible. And so knowing that little piece and understanding that, like, maybe that's why he acts out sometimes, maybe that's why he's a little aggressive, there's a lot of anger there that he needs to process. And so, we think about, like, what transgressions might have happened to ourselves in our own lives, what horrible things we may have witnessed, and sometimes we want to blame others, and maybe even beyond that blame, just because the pain is so difficult to deal with, we become aggressive, and we lash out at others that maybe have no responsibility. I didn't even know about Magnus's loss, and he was still very aggressive with me. And one day, I was walking by Magnus, and he reached out and bit me on the back, and held on and lifted me up into the air. And probably I was only up there for 2 seconds, but if you've ever been bitten by a horse that had held on for 2 seconds, it feels like half an hour that you're up there in excruciating pain. But in that moment, I knew that there was nothing I can do. This horse was much stronger than me. I couldn't even reach the ground to try to run away because he had lifted me off the ground. And felt that the only way to respond to this extreme aggression, to this ultimately this tragedy that had happened to him that caused him to lash out this way, was gentleness, was to respond in gentleness. So I'd relaxed. I knew there's nothing I could do, and just kind of let my body kind of go limp, and not just my body go limp, but my heart become gentle. My heart become warm and loving. And in that very moment, what felt like forever being held in excruciating pain, I felt a lot of love and care for Magnus. And then he had, let me back down and kind of dropped me kind of roughly, and I got up and moved safely away from Magnus, and just turned to him and bowed softly, and walked away feeling full, feeling warm in my heart, and feeling love for Magnus. And since that moment, Magnus stopped being as aggressive towards humans. He was still, every now and again, but I definitely noticed a change in his heart. That he could lash out at me, and he would only get a loving response. He could be very aggressive, and my response was gentleness. And I think that this too can start to heal that tragedy. And I didn't bring back his mate, and I didn't fix that pain for him, and he may always suffer that nightmare of seeing his mate lost. But in this moment of gentleness, I may have warmed his heart just a bit, just enough for him to see that that there's still love in the world, that there's still gentleness, and that there's still life to live, and there's still beauty to experience, there's still love to experience. And so ultimately that's what I want folks to understand, these two stories of my dear Tern friends and Magnus the horse, is that when we feel lost at trying to overcome an obstacle that we can't overcome, a tragedy that we can't overcome, maybe a war in another country that we can't fix, to maybe approach it with service and gentleness. We will conclude today's services with the recitation of the Animal Liberation Temple, or the Animal Liberation Prayer, as well as the dedication of merit. And then we will try to do our quick little tour again. I'm still doing my tour from my phone, so I can't go too far. Starting on page 12, continuing on to page 13 and 14, we'll recite the Animal Liberation Prayer. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends who are subject to unbearable pain in labs throughout the world, be free of all suffering. May alternatives to animal experimentation, vivisection, and dissection be implemented immediately. May bodhicitta, the quality of compassion that leads to enlightenment, fill the hearts of those who imprison them. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends who suffer endless days, months, and years, locked in tiny cages unable to move, be filled with peace and calm. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends who are forcibly taken from their families, be reunited, and may all families be able to stay together. May the hearts of those who work in slaughterhouses, factory farms, and all the industries that exploit our dear animal friends be filled with bodhicitta, so the very thought of harm is purified. May they never kill again, and may the slaughterhouse lines, factory farms, and all industries that exploit our dear animal friends become immediately empty. May no animal be afraid or depressed. May their bodies be free of injuries, disease, and illness. May the mutilation of their bodies be forever ceased. May those who need homes or have been driven from them find shelter, plentiful food, and water. May there be liberation for those tortured for fur, entertainment, or who are hunted. May those who believe that they are superior to our brother and sister animals develop perfect equanimity, and may they realize in their hearts that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, the potential to be completely free of suffering, and that they are not ours to kill or exploit. May the billions of land and sea-dwelling sentient beings who are abused, exploited, and killed due to greed, hatred, and ignorance be free of suffering. May all the nets, hooks, blades, projectiles, traps, snares, cages, pens, tanks, lethal restraints, saddles, reins, prods, bait, poison, and all instruments used to harm, exploit, and dominate our dear animal friends be forever abolished. May all human and non-human sentient beings live together in harmony, peace, equanimity, and achieve perfect enlightenment quickly. May we all experience happiness, safety, freedom, and animal liberation in this very lifetime. We now recite the dedication of merit to our dear animal friends, page 16 and 17. Throughout our many lives and until this moment, whatever virtue we have accomplished, including this aspiration for peace, and all that we will ever attain, this we offer for the benefit of all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends. May suffering, exploitation, and unnecessary death decrease for every being, while wisdom, bliss, and compassion increase in this and every future life. May we clearly and instantly perceive the plight of our dear animal friends with the urgency and seriousness they deserve, and our every action leads them to complete liberation. May we quickly attain enlightenment and work ceaselessly for liberation of all sentient beings. Again, I'm going to actually run the credits first before I do the sanctuary tour. That is to try to encourage people to stay for the credits, because I feel it's really important that we acknowledge the folks who have contributed to our sanctuary. Thank you to all the wonderful folks who have contributed to our dear animal residents of the Animal Liberation Temple from the 21st to the 27th of June. Thank you to everyone who has been liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to our social media. Our Venmo donors, Tani Salazar, Vanessa Ka, and Murray Holden, thank you so much. Our PayPal donors, Colin Simmons and Joshua Markson, thank you. And of course, our Patreon supporters who support us with a monthly donation: Susan Fryman, Neil Carmen, Paulina Bradford, Paula Partenheimer, Shannon Hunter, and MV. Thank you folks so much, and please consider donating through any of our platforms found at Linktree Animal Liberation Temple. We greatly appreciate all of that. So before we go though, we will have our quick sanctuary tour. And let's see if we can do this correctly. Looks like it's working. Oh, there's a Victor. He's the first one to come and see us. Hi, Victor. Let's see who else is around the temple. Oh, we got our cow friends out here. And some wild turkeys up by the trees. I don't think anybody can see that far, but they're there. And looks like that is, we got Elton and Mariah there, and Sabrina the rooster. Our pond's still looking pretty good. Oh, there's Bernard. Hi, Bernard. Come say hi to everybody. Oh, I'm being dragged down by Victor. Victor decides he likes to eat my robes. And there's Lucy. Everybody loves Lucy. Lucy. Good girl. Can we let go of that? Victor. And our Cornishes. Everybody looking really good. Got 2 roosters in there, which are doing really well. Sometimes that's difficult to do. But Edward and Jimmy are both in here. This is Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy. Say hi to everybody. And Edward's over there. Hopefully I'm pointing in the correct direction. Pictures coming in here. Might be a problem. Wonderful. So I hope everybody enjoyed the quick little sanctuary tour. Looks like, wonderful that Tony Seller, she did see the wild turkeys. Just going through the comments. Very good. I'm happy that you're able to rejoin our Facebook Live. Sorry that it gave up on us. Thank you everybody for joining us on the YouTube Live. Everybody have a wonderful week, and thank you so much. And as always, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about today's service, or have a request for future services on what you'd like me to discuss and talk about. Thank you all so much, and have